That can't be good. According to a study published in Science Advances, there is warm water trapped under the surface of the Arctic seas, which would significantly melt sea ice in the Arctic. The researchers used old data from ships and new data from probes installed in the Arctic waters to calculate the heat content. Warm water beneath the Arctic Sea is accumulating rapidly around 50 meters below the Arctic Ocean. As the sea ice melts, the water exposed to the sun heats up. The Arctic winds then send the warmer waters to the north, which is where they remain trapped beneath the ice pack. However, researchers warn that the trapped warm water has the potential to come to the surface and impact the ice. The Arctic is already warming at twice the rate of the global average, and something like this would only exacerbate the dire situation in the polar region. Here's more on climate change. Global warming is killing our oceans. A new study predicts that within 15 to 20 years, human-caused deoxygenation will be felt across the world's oceans. With climate change warming sea waters, oxygen levels in the world's oceans are beginning to drop. Surface water with higher temperatures absorb less oxygen. Such surface water is also more buoyant, so oxygen is less likely to make it into deeper water. The resulting conditions are dangerous to marine ecosystems, which depend on oxygen for survival. With the threat already underway, changes in the southern Indian Ocean and parts of the Pacific and Atlantic will be felt as early as 2030. Oceans in eastern Africa, Australia, and Southeast Asia, however, won't feel the impact until the next century. Worsening the effects of deoxygenation is an increase in carbon dioxide, causing oceans to be more acidic and less habitable. Researchers say carbon emissions must be reduced if we want to slow the oxygen loss, but monitoring and understanding where the oxygen levels are dipping and how it's impacting our waters is also key.
Another catastrophe caused by climate change. Japan's coral reefs are in danger. According to a government study, rising sea temperatures have impacted the ability of Japan's biggest coral reef to recover from bleaching, resulting in only 1% of the reef being in good health. Due to rising sea temperature, the reef has suffered bleaching events in 1998, 2001, 2007, and 2016, leading to a decrease in the overall coral volume by nearly 80% in the Tsukise Lagoon. A Japanese ministry official said that the loss of rich animal life under the sea would have a grave impact on the ecosystem in the region. The lagoon is approximately 67.89 square kilometers, with only around 1.4% of its corals healthy. According to scientists, it takes at least 10 to 20 years for coral to recover from a bleaching event. Coral reefs are home to 25% of sea life, even though they only make up 1% of marine environment. The only way for the coral to recover is if sea temperatures drop and algae are able to recolonize them again.
It might soon be a permanent game over for coral reefs. Warming waters are hurting the world's coral reefs almost 5 times more than they did 30 years ago. Scientists looked at bleaching data in 100 coral reefs. They found that the frequency of bleaching from warmer waters increased 5-fold from once every few decades to once every 6 years. Bleaching occurs when the reef reacts to stressful changes in temperature, light, nutrients, and other conditions. This makes the reef eject the symbiotic algae in their tissue and turn pale white. Corals can survive and even recover, but continued bleaching eventually leads to death. According to the National Ocean Service, coral reefs are considered sessile animals, meaning they're fixed to one place. The World Wildlife Fund says they provide almost $30 billion in goods and services every year. They're also important for tourism, coast protection against heavy storms, typhoons, and even tsunamis. Snow in the Sahara? Sounds like climate change. The head of Russia's environmental monitoring agency says increasingly frequent snowfalls on one of the hottest places on Earth stems from global warming. On January 7th, a blanket of snow fell on the Sahara Desert, near the northern Algerian town of Ain Sefra. The Sahara has been known to get as hot as 122 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, but while temperatures drop at night, it's unusual to see snow due to the dry air. In 1979, snow fell in the area for 30 minutes. It was 37 years before the next snowfall, but only a year passed between then and the most recent one, which saw 15 inches of snow cover. This, along with a cold spell in the US, an unusually warm Russian winter, and rainfall and flooding in Western Europe, it's evidence that global warming is on the rise. With the state of the climate as dismal as it is, and with no signs of improvement, guess there will be more extreme weather in our future. Yikes.
Asia's glaciers are shrinking. With Asian glaciers facing a massive melt by the end of the century, millions of people are at risk of water shortages, and it's all thanks to global warming. The high mountains of Asia lie in a region surrounding the Tibetan Plateau and contains the largest store of permanent ice outside the North and South Poles. Meltwater feeds into major rivers like the Indus, Yangtze, and Mekong, and are used for drinking, hydroelectric power, and irrigation. Scientists predict that Asian high mountain glaciers will lose a third of their mass by 2100 if the global temperature rises 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. If temperatures increase 3.5, 4, or 6 degrees, losses could reach 49%, 51%, and 65% respectively. Glacial loss could affect the region's water supply and lead to shortages. At the same time, accelerated melting could trigger intense flooding, especially when combined with climate change-induced heavy rains and super typhoons. High warming scenarios carry worse consequences, including massive sea level rise, floods, droughts, loss of species, and even disease. The only way to avoid such a dismal future is by minimizing global temperature rise. And for that, we need to double, even triple efforts to combat climate change.